All right, guys, welcome in. Here it is, a Tuesday, November the 19th, 2019. Time for another happy hour tip-off show brought to you by our good friends at wagertalk.com. And, of course, when it comes to college basketball, who better to talk hoops with than our good man here, Ralph Michaels, at Cal Sports LV. You can see it there. Reach him on Wager Talk on the Cal Sports page. And, Ralph, here we go, cruising another 40-some-odd games on the card here tonight in college hoop. Last night, listen, we did a pretty good job here on the show. We talked about some of our favorite plays, a couple of long shots, and, yeah, it seemed to be pretty profitable for those that might have tailed us yesterday.
It did. You know, it's nice to get the feedbacks from those guys watching. We appreciate you tuning in. Again, we do it daily, Monday through Friday. And, while we're not going to have winners every night, the key is, number one, to help educate people about college basketball, keep them tuned into what's happening, and at the end of the season, have more winners than losers.
Absolutely. It was a small card last night, but still some people that stood out from the rest, Ralph. And like we like to start the show here, guys, we always like to go over some of the top performers of the day here, and some interesting names on this list from some teams here, Ralph, yesterday that did a pretty good job around the college basketball world.
Yeah, looking at the players, Carson Williams, 27 points, 5 rebounds, and Javen White from Kansas City. The database has UMKC. They just want to be KC. 24 points, 15 rebounds. Tyrene Flowers, a lot of people don't know about Long Island and don't know about Flowers, but 20 points, 17 rebounds, and 7 assists. You don't see that combination very often of 17 rebounds and 7 assists. And then Nathan Knight for William and Mary against Oklahoma, a game that I believe was your best bet, William and Mary.
Yeah, Nathan. First half, William and Mary, damn it.
30 points and 8 rebounds.
Yep. It was a good day yesterday. It was an interesting day. It's going to get even actually crazy here today. But there were, listen, it wasn't without upsets, and we're going to have those each and every day, Ralph, because after all, we are talking about a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds here. So there are going to be some upsets. And yesterday, I guess, we'll start with SMU there and of course, Evansville, who was everybody's darling after beating Kentucky there last week.
Well, that's the game I was on. I was on Evansville. SMU, a very fake 3-0 team, having gone 0-3, but, they proved me wrong. They went on the road, got the job done with a good defensive effort. And again, listen, on a normal Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're not even since it was the only upset yesterday, we have to mention it.
Right, yeah, no, that was it. A lot of big ATS covers there, of course, yesterday. Ralph, Army, Fairleigh Dickinson, UTST taking on Texas San Antonio. Both of those home, 81-65. That was a 15-pointer there by Army, of course. Laying 1, I believe, was the number there. And UTST versus Texas San Antonio, 82-50. How's that big number of 19 treating you right there, Ralph? My word.
Yeah, Utah State, a powerful team. And, I'll tell you what, there's no team more disappointing in college basketball to start the season than Texas San Antonio. 2 returning guards. They were the highest scoring backcourt in the country. And for them to have started 0-5 straight up in ATS, just a crazy comeback. And, the biggest covers, one game covered by over 25 points to the over. That was LIU and Delaware State. Total of 149.5, 92-84. 3 games covered the total by under 26 or more points. Greensboro, App State, Illinois, Hawaii, and Northern Illinois, Longwood.
Yeah, that was a crazy ending, too, to that Hawaii-Illinois game, too. It was pretty crazy. But, again, today, another day here, Ralph, of great action, great basketball, and, of course, we do like to talk a little TNA before it's all said and done here, and some of the trends and angles. Again, over 40 games here, Ralph, so there's a lot to choose from. What were some of the TNA, the trends and angles that you pulled out today?
You would think that I'm sitting here waiting to go on the show that I would have it ready and not have lost it. So, I'll tell you what, Joe, we're going to go inside the numbers. And as I scramble through my desk,
yes.
Why don't we skip one segment and, like we do with you, Joe, we go through 3 parts.
Yep.
Number 1, the biggest line moves since the lines were posted.
Mm-hmm.
Many times, that's also going to be the biggest percentage bets on a side or total.
Yes.
And then the most bets games. So why don't you start it off with the biggest movers since those lines were posted?
Yeah, it's interesting, Ralph, because some of these games here on the board today, pretty funny. I'll start with a game that's actually getting more and more people interested in it as far as the handle goes, and that game is going to be Mississippi Valley State versus Louisiana Tech. Did you think I'd be opening with that, Ralph? Huh? Did you think I'd be going with Mississippi Valley State versus Louisiana Tech? And the reason it's interesting is, number one, the dollars and the percentages, the amount of spread tickets out there right now. 38% of the tickets on Mississippi Valley State. That's representing 57% of the money. Now, this has opened up at a monster Louisiana Tech advantage here, minus 32. It's been pushed up to minus 36. But the interesting part, too, is how off they were in the total. It opened up at 151. It's already up to 158 in some places, a 7-point swing, and I think that might have something to do with 85% of the tickets coming in on the over, representing 92% of the money. So it's funny, especially this time of year, Ralph, we do see sometimes, and this is why they do it, they open these lines early enough, is they realize, oops, we might have made a mistake. It gives them time to recover here, the books, a little bit.
Well, Lindsey Hunter is a first-year head coach for Mississippi Valley State, so they didn't know what to expect. But you're seeing the worst defense in the country, playing at the fastest pace in the country. Oh, let's see. You allowed 110 to Iowa State, 143 to Utah, 134 to Central Michigan. And I believe you jumped on the Western Michigan game playing against them last time. So, not only are you playing fast pace and you're playing no defense, you played 5 legitimate teams now, and Mississippi Valley State's going to challenge Chicago State for the worst team of the 353 teams in Division I basketball.
Another one that a team you've been on, Ralph, another big mover and shaker here, 9 o'clock Eastern time here, game tonight. Opened up at -7. Grand Canyon taking on Montana State. And again, this is another one of those games that's getting an awful lot of tickets being written towards its way. And 68% of the tickets are in Montana State, representing 80% of the money. It opened up at -7 Grand Canyon, but it has been bet down. I'm seeing some -5s, -4.5s. And this is another one, Ralph, with the total. Opened up at 140, 141. I'm seeing 134s now. Another one there with Montana State and Grand Canyon getting some big movement and some big tickets.
Well, I don't always agree with the movements, Joe, and I'll tell you what. Why don't we wait and talk about this game more with a situational game and a best bet?
Even better. And then, of course, finally, it's not on one of the marquee matchups, but it is certainly by far, Ralph, the game that is receiving the most attention right now. And that's Vermont taking on Virginia, the Cavaliers versus the Catamounts here. Two teams having a very difficult time shooting the ball, but can certainly play defense here. Opened up as Virginia is a big 14.5-point favorite. It's remained steady. So is the total. Now, some people might be like, is that a mistake? No, it's 113.5. It's pretty much solid right there. If you're expecting a big entertaining scoring game, I wouldn't be watching Vermont, Virginia here tonight. But it's by far almost a 2-1 here to its next closest game as far as handle goes. And a lot of the tickets and a lot of the money coming in on Virginia right now.
Well, again, you are talking about this Virginia defense that, let's see, what's the recipe for unders, Joe? Well, how about if you have the number 1 defense and you're the slowest paced team?
Yep.
That's exactly what Virginia is.
Mm-hmm.
The number 1 defense out of 353 teams and the slowest paced tempo teams out of 353 teams.
Mm-hmm.
You may not see a total over 135 the entire season for them.
Yeah.
I found my scribbles, and there weren't many today because it's a very light card. And, again, this is early in the year, and we will have much better trends and situations as the season progresses. But I don't want people just to jump on because these couple small trends. But Purdue-Fort Wayne has a team that's been an over team. They've gone over 16 of 20 games, so 16-4 to the over. The Citadel, another very fast-paced team, they've gone over 6 of 7, while their opponent, Southeast Missouri, has gone over 9 of their last 10. And Seattle, a team I had my eye on tonight, I didn't pull the trigger, but they're 1-6 over/under on the road. So just a couple angles there to pay attention to as you're looking through these games.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the other things we like to do here on the show, guys, is point out some of those dogs here tonight that might be on the card, Ralph, that certainly deserve a look-see here, if not only on the spread, but of course maybe you're going to sprinkle a little something on the money line. I'm not sure if there's a game here that piqued your interest there. William and Mary was one for me last night with Oklahoma, and they almost pulled off the full upset, but they certainly got them in the first half. Is there anybody tonight on the card you looked at and said we got ourselves a live one here?
Well, nothing jumped out at me as far as this game was close to being a play. So from that respect, no. And when I'm looking through the card again now and picking out something, I like Mercer against Georgia Southern. They're plus 8.5 or 9. It's a situation where Mercer to me is a team that lost to St. John's by 30, but that's because they pressed the pace. And when you're playing a better team and you're playing a superior foe and you press the pace, there's oftentimes you could give up 100 points and get blown out. But, Kennesaw was a weak team. Florida Gulf Coast was a weak team, but they won those both by double digits. They're going on the road. They're going to give Georgia Southern a run for their money because Georgia Southern's a very fast-paced team too. This is a game that's going to be in the 80s most likely. Joe, you have the total in front of you there?
Yes, hold on one second. Let me get to the latest line here with Mercer. It wasn't a very big one, I don't think. Let's see. Yes, I've got it as, there it is, 161.5.
All right. Well, again, that's about where my projections are. I would still lean with the over a little bit, but when you're shooting that many threes, a team can tend to get hot. And Georgia Southern, awful win against Radford, but lost to North Florida and beat a Reinhardt team that is nothing. They're one of the worst teams in three-point defense, which is what I want when I have a three-point shooting team like Mercer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny, Ralph, talking about, shooting teams and, of course, spreads versus totals is something that we always look at here. And I'm going to go back to this Virginia-Vermont game. I mean, you're looking at 14.5 points, even maybe a 15 or 2 out there for this Vermont team. Now, while Virginia, of course, still trying to figure it out, it's not like they're shooting lights out here anytime soon, guys. They are slow. They do play some defense, but the Catamounts also, they come into this game, 4-0? 3 of those wins have come by 3 points or less. They, too, can drop some defense on folks. So you already have a struggling Virginia shooting team who can play defense. You mix it in with a team that likes to play in close contests over here. 14, 15 points and only a $113 game here. I mean, the first one sounds like the 60 will win. I like Vermont's chances of keeping it close within the 14 or 15. I think it's too many points.
Well, you're talking about a Vermont team that, has to go on the road and play some money games. They need some cash. But, you're John Becker and you have this Catamount team that, all of a sudden you go to St. Bonaventure to open the season, you win. Then you go to St. John's last Saturday and you win. So you've already knocked off 2 good teams on the road. Gives you a lot of confidence playing, the defending champ. And, while you look at Virginia, I mean, they played a team much worse than Columbia, only won by 18. the Syracuse game doesn't count, but
No,
you know,
yeah.
48-34. That's and they go to a tournament and play a tournament on Saturday where they're going to be facing UMass first. So you have to look ahead now when you get into these holiday seasons and people are going to be going out of town and you're looking at where Virginia is going and. They're playing in a decent tournament up in Mohican, so up in Connecticut. So again, agree with the play when you have a total that low with double-digit points.
Yeah, it's going to be. I wouldn't look for it to be all that exciting as far as offense goes there, Ralph. But you had mentioned. Situationally, there's a game here that's on the board. We had mentioned Grand Canyon here. What is your situational spot of the day?
Well, I'm going to double dip again. And, when we get more games, this won't happen. I double dipped yesterday with the situational and the best bet. And it's simply this. Grand Canyon got off to a poor start, losing a couple games, and they finally got off the schneid and won their last game. And you look at Montana State, and you're impressed. I mean, they're 4-1. They went out to Greensboro, and they won that game on a half-court shot with a second to go. They inbounded the ball with 4 seconds to go, down by 1. Kid took 2 dribbles to the half court, banked it in, and they end up winning. But, we are now November 19th, and Montana State just went to Greensboro. They played Friday, they played Saturday, and they played Sunday. So you now have a rested Grand Canyon team playing a Montana State team that played 3 straight games in Greensboro, now playing their 4th game in 5 nights, traveling to Phoenix to face this team.
Interesting. All right. And again, guys, these are all bits of information. Interesting situations now as the season continues to move along here. We'll have a whole lot more for you, a whole lot more data, a whole lot more information, obviously, with the teams as they're currently constructed. We also have got some marquee matchups here tonight, Ralph. The first one's interesting. It's a team that we've talked about, interestingly enough, here a couple of times. New Mexico taking on at UTEP here, and it's funny. What made you choose this as a marquee matchup? Because you got 2 teams one that can play really good offense, one that can play really good defense.
Well, you look at the games tonight, and there aren't that many marquee matchups. And basically, I try to take 2 teams that are in the top 100. Obviously, when we get to Wednesdays, we're going to have ranked games against ranked games most times. But the card's not very deep today. So this is a rivalry that's very important to these guys in this state. And I look at UTEP, and UTEP's one of those teams that knocked off New Mexico State in another rivalry game. Then they just played Eastern Michigan. They only won by 14, and they played New Mexico Highlands. And while New Mexico Highlands and Eastern Michigan are, lower rated teams, those are still kids that these kids play it against in high school, and they recruit the same groups. And you're now playing your 4th straight team from New Mexico, all 4 at home. New Mexico, to me, has a great offense. Both of these teams, go the JUCO route. UTEP had very few returning starters, but what happens? They bring in the JUCOs, and all of a sudden they're a competitive team. I like New Mexico's offense. I think Paul Weir gets it done. He's talked about how good this team is. They put up 90 against Northridge. They put up 90 against Green Bay. They put up 90 against McNeese State. And I think New Mexico can score enough here to get this win.
Yeah, and listen, the Miners are, 76 points per game themselves. They should be able to score at least that. If not, I'm thinking around 80. So when you put them all together, I like the over in this matchup too, Ralph. I do think that while, yes, they can play a little bit of defense there, I do think UTEP and New Mexico got enough firepower here to be able to soar over that number. The over might be worth taking a look at as well.
Oh, absolutely. Can't argue with that as well. Paul Weir is not one to blow smoke up people's butts, and he said he has his best offensive team here. And when he's a coach, that when he says that, you believe it. So as long as those kids shoot up to their abilities, they're a team that you have to look on the over.
Talk to me about Furman, Alabama. Another game folks are taking a look at. Alabama opened up 3.5-point favorite, total 151 in this matchup here. What do you think about this game?
Well, this is a game that I brought up in this segment because it is one of the top games, because people may not think Furman, but you have two top 75 teams here.
Mm-hmm.
This probably is the number one game. Maybe Kansas, East Tennessee State could have gotten up there as well. But to me, I wanted to talk about Alabama. I could have picked this as a money line dog as well, Joe, because I do like Furman.
Mm-hmm.
Nate Oates is from Buffalo, and if you watched Buffalo last year, they are the fastest paced team, or one of the fastest paced teams in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you what, Alabama's going to be one of the fastest paced teams. He's going through his growing pains. He's played a couple games. They turned the ball over 22 times against Rhode Island. They turned the ball over in their opening loss as well. Mm-hmm. They're struggling learning how to play this fast pace under Nate Oates. You have it is one that I will watch tonight to see. You have two very important players from Alabama which have question marks. Quinery is a 5-star recruit that played for Villanova last night. He's a transfer. His eligibility is supposed to come through today, so they may have him tonight. If they have him tonight, I'm not going to play Furman. You also have Bell Bolden, the West Virginia transfer, who was injured and is a game-time decision. I will be on Furman if both of those players are not playing, so keep track of Twitter. Check it out tonight, and you could find some value with Furman.
Yeah, and that's a good reminder too, Ralph, to make sure that you guys are always checking, making sure that injury reports are pretty huge, especially heading into this time of year, heading into the tournament season and the holiday season, which is coming up. It's another one too that I think, depending on the pace here, Ralph, and we know they've been racking up some points there, Furman, and they're going to face a tougher defense here in Alabama, obviously. And listen, Furman can play a little bit of defense too. I think the under is 8-2 in Furman's last 10 games following a straight-up win. So I would expect maybe the SEC here in Alabama to put on a defensive showing, and why not? An under might actually be worth a look in this game as well, especially depending on the health of those guys coming into this game here tonight.
Well, that's there's a lot of times early in the year, Joe, where you can find value when coaches are changing. I'm going to say later on in the year, you're not likely to use Alabama with that change in scheme.
Right.
But when you're learning to play that, you turn the ball over a lot, and it doesn't always necessitate an overgame.
Yep.
You look at the Florida Atlantic game that Alabama had at home, the final was 78-59. So, yes, they want to play fast, but just because a coach wants to play fast and he's only 4 games into the season doesn't necessarily mean that translates into overs.
And that's what they're going to do. They might still be trying to figure it out. All right, Ralph, it is that time. Of course, best bets here. You're doubling up here today. What is it you're leaning towards here?
Well, as I said, I'm double dipping with the Grand Canyon situation, fading Montana State playing their 4th game in 5 nights. Yes, you do it in conference tournaments in March, but you are much more conditioned in March when you're playing that scenario than you are in playing in Phoenix after spending the previous weekend in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yeah. I'm going to go with I'm going to go the opposite. I told you guys definitely I liked Vermont here with getting double digits on the road, taking on a Virginia team who's got trouble scoring. But I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go to a double-digit favorite here. I'm going to take the Zags. I think the Mavericks of Texas Arlington, this is a big game for them. I mean, what can you say about Gonzaga other than that they've been just running over everyone? UT Arlington lost by 20 to Oregon. Now they're going to face an even better team here in Gonzaga. They've won all 4 of their games this season, guys, by at least 30 points. And they're also 2-0 all-time against UTA. They are just dominating opponents this season here. They are coming out. Their hair is on fire. They're averaging 95 points per game. They're only allowing about 59 points on average per game. It's one of those situations. It's 21 and a half. I'm not afraid to lay it with a Gonzaga squad that to this point hasn't taken their foot off the gas. I don't anticipate they will either tonight at home.
You can't argue that. One last thing before we go, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of the teams to keep the eyes on. The teams that are perfect against the spread so far: William and Mary 5-0 ATS, Winthrop, Stanford, Delaware, Missouri, Butler, Montana State, who I'm going against, and that's why the money's on them.
Yep.
Siena and Arizona, all 4-0 against the spread, and an 0-3 team in Grand Canyon. So a couple other teams that are 0-for. Colgate's 0-for-4 against the spread. UTSA, I talked about 0-5 against the spread. UC Davis and Georgetown 0-4 against the spread. So one of those times where I'm normally not going to play an 0-3 team against a 5-0 team against the spread regular season, but there's so much that goes on at the beginning of the season. I'm not afraid to be a contrary handicapper at that point.
There you go. Ralph Michaels, wagertalk.com. Guys, get there today. Packages available. Information also at Ralph's, of course, Twitter page, at CalSportsLV. Wagertalk.com. Get there. Make sure you subscribe in the upper right-hand corner. Guys, we do these tip-off shows for your college basketball season every Monday through Friday here on YouTube at Wager Talk TV. Make sure that you hit the little bell in the upper-hand corner. Never miss an episode. So, Ralph, as always, my man, pleasure talking to you. Good luck with the plays tonight. We'll do this again tomorrow, man.
Thanks, Joe. Talk to you tomorrow.
You got it. Ralph Michaels, wagertalk.com, guys. Get there today.